Mario, it's Maurice. We can see you. Can you hear us?
Yes, perfectly. I hear
Very
you.
good. So you have the word.
Thank you, Maurice. Good morning, everybody. Happy New Year. I'm Mario Treyes of Spain. Today I'm here to introduce a new device manufactured in Spain. This is the device, the so-called bipolar radiofrequency Thermalipo device. The unique characteristics of this device is that it has the so-called unflit technology. This technology means that this device is capable to adapt a multiple frequency emission at a low impedance, which means, in fact, that the device, when applied to the tissue, detects via the electrodes how hot the skin is. So the machine actually, when starting the treatment, it starts by injecting, let us put it this way, the electrical energy which flows into the tissue at a very deep layer of the skin, simple because the distance between electrodes is pretty high. The second point is that the machine, by using at the first stage of the treatment this low frequency emission, then low frequency emissions in radiofrequency tends to penetrate deeper. So the wave of heat is coming from the inside the tissue towards the surface of the tissue. It's at this very moment that impedance changes, and because of that, the device changes also the emission frequency. This emission frequency changes to a more frequent momento of treatment, which conducts us to the so-called heating up of the skin up to the 40 to 42 degrees. At this very moment, the nociceptors, those sensors selectively placed at the surface of the skin, detects the increasing heat, and because of that, the patient starts feeling pain. One of the nicest things of this device, which I presented to you now, is the so-called Thermalipo, is that at the time of the treatment, because the machine assumes how heat the skin becomes, then adapts constantly to this emission frequency level. And because of that, then the skin is not feeling the heat until a certain moment when the temperature raises. Because of that, then automatically the machine goes back to the previous proportion of wavelength of emission, the frequency of emission, and that comes to a nice, pretty homogeneous heating of the skin. We have a patient, a volunteer. Here the patient is going to be treated on the belly. As you can see here, my God, this too much is a hairy patient. What happened? And actually, it's a gentleman, of course. But anyway, we're going to treat this person here, serving as a model, and we're going to treat him in this part of the tummy. For the treatment, my colleague and dear friend, Dr. Claudia van der Loo from the Netherlands, is going to introduce you to the capabilities of this device. Please, Claudia, good morning.
You need a few things for this treatment to do. Maybe it's not necessary to wear gloves, but I just would like to perform a clean treatment. You need a little device to measure the temperature, and as Dr. Treyes already explained, this has to do with the tissue temperature. What you do measure is the skin temperature, but you have to take into account that when you have a certain temperature of the skin, the epidermis temperature, the temperature beneath the tissue is much higher, so you have to check this. It's a very nice and small device, simple to handle. You can choose 3 programs by just using the selection button, and we can go to a high program, which means that the frequency is the same and the energy is the same. The only difference is that the delay between the pulses, let's say, is a little bit longer or shorter. If you go to a high program, it means that it's a very short delay in which the skin has time to cool down, and if we choose the medium one, you have a little bit longer delay, and if you go for very sensitive areas, bony areas, sensitive people in certain skin, you go to the program low, where you have the longest delay. For this patient, I think we should try the medium one, and then you need a gel. And let me tell you, the gel that you need is just a regular gel. Don't put anything in it because it might heaten up. And don't go over the bony areas. Now, because this is a demonstration, I do not use my drawing pen, but usually I draw a pattern and divide it into 4 areas.
Would you tell us what is the ideal patient, the best indication for this device?
It's, let's say, radiofrequency or manipulation of the fat tissue in that area. You need the patient to have subcutaneous fat tissue to be of good weight, not overweight. It should be a soft fat tissue, not granulated or girdle. And the best areas to treat is the belly, the epigastric region, the lower belly, or the buttocks and the thighs and the upper arms. This is not a treatment for people with firm fat tissue or a very firm and elastic skin.
Will it improve the cellulitis aspect as well?
Yes, it will.
Okay.
Depending on the grade of the cellulite that you have. If you have a cellulite type 4, whereas mainly a problem with the fibrous septa, it might be a little bit hard. But one of the advantages of this machine is because you create the temperature first in the deep layer of the tissue, you get a hypervascularization, which already gives a lot of more nutrients and oxygens, but you also have a stimulation of the lymphatic drainage, and that is one very important cause of the cellulite. And with this machine we see a very good result in this one.
Please let me point it out that within few histological studies that have been conducted not only on patients but on animals, we were able to detect that outside the cells there were some drops of lipidic tissue, lipidic content. This is important because that tells us that although that the membrane of the adipocyte is not being destroyed or changed, then we can see that actually it's a depletion of this content in lipids within this adipocyte. This study has been conducted, as I say, in animals, on New Zealand rabbits, that although that are maybe not the best models for this treatment due to the fact that the skin dimension is not the same, the depth is not the same as in humans, they have proved us that we were able to remove some of the content of the accumulus of fat, as well as has been detected when the septum, fibrotic septum, are rearranged after the treatment in humans. Please, Claudia.
Now we will start the treatment. Because I'm a little bit tall, I would like to sit down and have a better control of this one. So you need a laser temperature little device. You've got several, but have a device which is delivered with the Thermalipo. And you first use it and you check the skin so you know your reference point. It's quite easy. You just push the button. It starts. You don't hear anything. But now when you apply the handpiece to the skin, you start hearing a certain sound. And what you hear is something like a high-pitched sound with a delay in it. You first go and check the temperature, whether it's right. One of the nice things of this device is that if you do not apply the handpiece correctly to the skin, like contact, like now, you don't hear the sound anymore. It's very, very important to maintain the handpiece in a good contact with the skin, because otherwise you might end up burning your patients. Electrons start jumping from one electrode to the other, and you will see a few endpoints.
Observe that Claudia is doing a sort of called 8-figure treatment. This is actually the first passage, and then actually she's going to be crossing that area of treatment. And the treatment is finished by a third passage of the handpiece, which is going to be pulling the line of tensions of the area which is under treatment.
Could you tell us what's the patient feeling at the moment?
What are you feeling, gentlemen?
It's a nice warm feeling.
It's a nice warm feeling.
No pain?
No pain.
Absolutely.
That actually is good that you say, Maurice.
Yeah.
These are the end point of the treatment. 3 points, the so-called redness, increase in temperature, or pain. That tells us exactly, as I explained you before, that the nociceptor receptors located at the surface of the skin are already detecting the wave of heat which is coming from the inside to the outside, which tell you that the treatment should be over or going to another place.
Okay. Now what I do see, this is the end of my first pass. I check the temperature and I have the therapeutic temperature which is between 40 and 42 degrees. And I take a look at my endpoint signs. There's a little erythema starting here in the middle. And what's mainly important, now you just pass to another, let's say, application. Instead of turning now, you make a little bit other movements in the direction of the traction lines. But now you have to be careful not to stay in the same spot. You see that erythema turns up much quicker right now. Purpose of this second pass is that you maintain for about 2 or 3 minutes the same temperature, otherwise nothing happens. You have to maintain that. That means that you don't have to apply constantly the handpiece. You just check regular the temperature, and if the tissue temperature maintains between 40 and 42 degrees, you can wait a little bit until you pass 2-3 minutes, and now you proceed. This area is finished and we go to the another area and we start again with the first pass. Then we do the second pass where we maintain the temperature for 2 minutes at the same, and now we go to the third pass when we have an area, for instance, where you have what you just said, Maurice, strong cellulites, or where you have a thick cushion of fat deposits. You would like to put extra attention to this region, and you can go for a third pass in this region. Always keep an eye on your endpoints. Your patient wants to have the best result, but this is still radio frequency. It's creating a lot of heat. So you have to look for a very diffuse erythema. The patient has to indicate that there is a certain level that you say, okay, stop, this is enough, and that you have a light swelling of the area. It should not be that you have pinpoint lesions or that you have red hot spots or circles, because then you have applied too much heat to that specific area. And then you have to advise your patient to drink a lot of water, not to wear too tight clothes, because the fat tissue is a little bit softened up, and they can go on with their daily life and come back for the next week for the treatment. The average amount of treatments that we do is between 8 and 12 treatments, depending on the area you're treating, depending on the cause that you're treating. But between 8 and 12 is an average time. And depending on the area that you are treating, you can count on about 25 minutes up to 1 hour. And sometimes if you have 2 legs, depending on the size of the legs, it can take 1.5 hours on what you would like to do.
What are the intervals recommended between treatments?
What I do in my practice is that we do it weekly for the first 4 to 6 treatments, and then we proceed with 1 every 2 bi-weekly.
Bi-weekly. Okay.
What we do right now in the multi-center study is that we do the treatment with those study objects every week, 12 times.
Is there anything that you do in between treatment, Claudia?
What?
Is anything that you do in between treatments?
Yes.
Yeah. What is that?
That's an extra secret. What we do, what everybody noticed that I still have the handpiece in my hand. I don't apply it to the patient, so we don't hear anything. But be very, very careful, because if you touch it yourself, you will burn yourself. So first we just put it out, and it will say, okay.
I will open the floor for discussions and questions, if there are any, because we have 5 minutes left.
I would
Okay.
only comment on Mario Tre's question. You can, of course, combine this treatment with the connective skin massage and lymphatic drainage, of course, nutritional advice and sports activity. And this is radio frequency. It would be a very good idea to take a look into combining with ultrasound.
That's correct. This is one of the nicest things. Beside that, the machine is a transportable, small gadget, which permits an easy access to all the programs and very simple of operation. Then also it permits you, to carry the treatment by a single person, just keeping on in a certain parameters and also following these endpoint treatments. So I'm open for discussion. Is anything, or for those who are interested in following a little bit more with more data, what are we explaining now at the practical point? We're going to hold a workshop this tomorrow.
Saturday morning at 8:30 for the early birds.
So you're going to need to be very brave to come that early in the morning, but I wait for you. We wait for you.
Well, we
Mario,
also
I have a tricky question for you.
Yes.
Why do you think this monopolar device is better than the other ones?
this is a bipolar device.
Sorry, the bipolar device.
Yes.
Why do you think it's better than the other one?
That's a good question, thank you, because that permits me to explain a little bit on these capabilities of this device. This device has the so-called Ampli technology. As I say, most of the devices, they start beeping in different frequency of a regular fixed frequency when they're doing the treatment. But with this device, it's adaptable to what the tissue requires, which means that at the time of the starting the treatment, then the machine looks for the deeper tissue in order to create a wave of heat, which is going to change the impedance. Because impedance change, then the machine adapts. And also because it's transportable, also because it's simple to operate, and it's also because after conducting a so-called multi-center study in different places of Europe, we're very satisfied with the results.
Thank you.
Actually, we're going to have.
Is there any
a
question?
lecture. Tell them about the study results going to be presented in about 1 hour at 2 o'clock.
Yes.
No more questions?
No more questions. Everybody looks happy and hungry.
Really? This is, I will join you then in person. Thank you very much,
Okay,
everybody.
thank you very much,
Thank
and
you
I
very
close
much.
the session. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you also to Claudia and to our patient.